Initiating podcast download. Prepare yourself. Put on your spandex. Lace up your boots. Wrap your wrists. Hide your razor blade. Head to gorilla position. Grease up your hair. Apply baby oil. Okay, apply more baby oil. Get into gimmick. Keep your ears open and your mouth shut. Have fun and be safe out there, brother. Welcome to Iron on Wrestling. Now your host, Gregory Iron.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Iron on Wrestling with Gregory Iron. I'm your host, Gregory Iron. This is episode 319. Don't be mean, because, I don't have Aaron today, and I know everybody likes Aaron, but he's not here with me. I'm actually sitting at home, and, I have a lot of personal stuff that I'm dealing with this week, so I'm recording solo. Have some stuff that I'm trying to get accomplished, and I'm just really bogged down. I'm a busy man. Got a couple writing projects that I'm working on, and I was actually back on the road this weekend for the first time in a while, and I'm psyched. I'm geeked. I'm jacked. Feeling good, and Aaron will be back next week. As long as things don't get too wild and crazy, kids. But this past weekend I was back on the road again, and I was actually doing a pro wrestling seminar, and I was ring announcing for professional all-star women wrestling. That was out in Claroy, Pennsylvania, and I had a really good time. I did feel a little awkward at first doing ring announcing for the show as the special guest ring announcer, of course, emphasis on special. I have cerebral palsy. And, but, I felt like I kind of came into my own. I don't know. I don't think it was too shabby. It made some dad jokes in between some of the matches. It was great meeting Gabby Gilbert for the first time. Somehow, in 20 years of professional wrestling, I have never crossed paths with the legendary Gabby Gilbert. I got to see Big Al, Alice Crowley, in action, plethora of other girls, and of course, before the show, I got to conduct one of my seminars, which I had about 9 or 10 young men and women attend, and it was, man, I get so much fulfillment with being able to give back with the knowledge that I have, or, depending on your perspective, what little knowledge that I have, but I feel like I might know a thing or two about professional wrestling, and not so much the physical aspect, but understanding the physical aspect, right? And promos and character building. And while I've never got a major contract, I do feel like, based on the things I've done and seen, despite being 5'4" with cerebral palsy, I have a lot to offer. And I hope that the kids that talked with me for a little over 2 hours really enjoyed the conversation. And, that's what my seminars are all about, right? It's not about doing physical stuff. We do a little bit of positioning and timing on occasion, but it's really about figuring out who you are, both as a character and as a person in some ways, in that little time that we have together, or at least, getting a little bit below the surface and trying to find those things, because I don't know, I never really got as much from physical seminars as I did from just talking with a wrestler and asking the things that I wanted to ask, that I felt like I was struggling with, and just asking about certain stories and situations, and then hearing them talk about it, and without them probably realizing it, I get something out of their story that resonates with me. So I think it's, sometimes more beneficial just to have those conversations, because if you can figure out mentally, I think it's easier to put it together physically. So I don't know. That's my rambling about that, but I really enjoyed my seminar this weekend. I'm looking forward to doing more of those. I really think that's my career post wrestling. It's great. It feels great. And I don't know. I'm looking forward to doing much more of it. As you're listening to this on Wednesday, if you're listening for free on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts, I have probably earlier in the day pitched a writing project that I've been working on, unrelated to the book that I've been working on. I don't want to go too deep into the details just yet, but it's something that I'm super excited about. It's something that's going to involve wrestling, but stretch me beyond the confines of just wrestling. And I don't know. I might talk a little bit more about it on Patreon, patreon.com/IronOnWrestling, where you get a buttload of bonus content starting at just $3. We actually dropped a 12-minute free episode this week, a little shorter than usual because I'm, quite frankly, short on time. But $3 gets you in the door on Patreon for the bonus audio video at $5. $9 gets you involved in a live conversation with me once a month. I'm going to have something before the month ends. My week is a little slammed this week, so I'm going to try to fit something in before the end of November. And of course, if you go up and up and up in the tiers, $25 and up, you get something in the mail from me. I'm going to be sending out packages at the start of December. So if you would want to get involved with that, you're going to have to sign up this month and next to make sure you secure your package. So hurry, don't delay. There's still time. Go back as well. Might as well plug it. About, not this past Friday, but the Friday before, I appeared on Talk is Jericho. I talked a little bit about my career and the book that I've been working on, and I think I'm getting pretty close to at least a finished first draft. So definitely check out my episode on Talk is Jericho. And yeah, I think what we'll do now at this time is we'll take a quick break, pay some bills, and when we come back, I am going to talk about John Cena's final appearance at Madison Square Garden and some of my favorite matches and moments in the history of wrestling at Madison Square Garden. We'll return on Iron on Wrestling. If you're on your health and wellness journey, you need to check out TNT-health.com, the official sponsor of Iron on Wrestling. As far as your nutritional needs go, what am I talking about here? Well, with TNT Health, they always hook me up with my pre-workout, my post-workout, anything that I need in between. I like to use the creatine before I work out. I like to use the glutamine after I work out. It's basic, but it works. I like their vanilla organic protein that I can mix with absolutely anything. If I'm short on oat milk, which is my favorite thing to mix my protein with, if I mix it with water, it doesn't clunk up or anything like that. It's great. I've never had a protein like that I can mix it with water with no issues. Mike and the good folks at TNT Health are going to help you every step of the way, because they're not just helping you with you buying things that will help you on your fitness journey, but they're making sure you're buying into results. They don't want to sell you stuff you don't need, like GNC or Vitamin Shop. They want to ask you what your goals are and direct you towards items that fit those goals, that help you attain what you're looking for. You want to make a change? The change starts now. It's November. Why wait until the new year? Any day is the right day to start and make a change. So go to TNT-health.com. It's free to look, but if you buy anything on the site, you'll save 10% with our promo code IRONON. That's IRONON, IRONON. Save 10% on anything and everything that you buy. Go to TNT-health.com, because at TNT Health, it's about your health today, not tomorrow. I have a good buddy. His name's Juan Ortiz, and he runs Of the Dead Designs, and Guys, he's been doing this for almost 20 years. Do you even know some of the prominent figures that Juan Ortiz and Of the Dead Designs has done t-shirts for? He's injured right now, but he's done a shirt for Seth Rollins. He's retired right now, but he's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, The Undertaker. I know you know him. He works in NXT. He's one of their featured champions right now. All Ego Ethan Page. Have you heard of Penta? Have you heard of Hulk Hogan? Have you heard of Walter? Oh, maybe you haven't, but you've heard of Gunther. That's the same person, and Juan's done a shirt for him. Perhaps you know the Swolverine. Oh, what's he go by? Brian Cage. Okay? The Lucha Brothers, the Young Bucks. Yeah, I said the Young Bucks. And look, the commissions are open for Juan Ortiz and Of the Dead Designs right now. $25 an hour, 5-hour minimum, okay, to get a design. Yes, anybody can get a design from Juan Ortiz and Of the Dead Designs. Why work with something shitty like AI when you can go to Juan, who's going to create you exactly what you want? And look, you got to pay artists, right? It's all about paying the artists. If you mention Iron on Wrestling on your first design, whatever it is, whether it's a piece of artwork for yourself, a friend, a loved one, a logo for your big or small business, Juan Ortiz is going to knock off $20 on your first design. That's right, 20 doll hairs. Each one of those $20 can get you 1, 2, 3, 4 sniffs of the mustache from an alpaca in place of, well, whatever else you would spend $20 on. Don't waste your money on bullshit. Save that $20 and put it to a good cause. But, reach out to Juan Ortiz right now and Of the Dead Designs. Of the Dead Designs on Instagram, facebook.com/Of the Dead Designs, or go to the website ofthedead.weebly.com, because Of the Dead Designs is bringing artwork to life. We are back here on Iron on Wrestling, and today I'm going to reminisce a little bit about my favorite Madison Square Garden memories and matches, but I guess the place to start is where the last time is now begins to end. The last time John Cena appeared in Madison Square Garden, at least as a pro wrestler, happened this past Monday night on Raw. First of all, let me just say, I don't understand why John isn't closing these shows. I don't know if this is a John decision. I could easily see him making that call because he's a humble guy like that. But man, it's very strange to see him come out to do the promo to start the show and then not build that up through the night. They didn't do that last week in Boston. However, that Intercontinental Championship match was great. It was tremendous to see John win the IC title, the last belt he needed to become a Grand Slam champion. But, he starts the show. He didn't even get to really talk to MSG. I don't know. As a wrestling fan, maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but I live for these moments where these guys just speak from the heart, tell these crowds what they mean to them, and I feel like John didn't really get that chance. But I tell you what, that goddamn crowd showed John the most love that maybe they ever showed him. I think the only comparable reaction that he's gotten in MSG off the dome is when he made his surprise return at the 2008 Royal Rumble as number 30. One of the more iconic moments in WWE history. Nobody expects John Cena to come back that quickly after tearing his pec, I believe in October. I was there at that Raw against Mr. Kennedy when he tore his pec. I believe it was on a simple hip toss. And, it was very unfortunate, but what a comeback. And as John Cena made his way to the ring in MSG, New York City, man, the crowd was singing his song. They were cheering their asses off for him. Dominic Mysterio interrupts the promo quickly, and they set up a match at Survivor Series. It's going to be a rematch. John Cena versus Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship, and I'm guessing that John will be putting up over Dom, which I think is the right thing to do. It really is. Dom has come a long way. Ryan Egan, Patreon member, frequent listener to the show, used to be in studio with us all the time. Wish we still had him, but Ryan's always hated on Dom, and I have always seen something quite special in Dominic Mysterio, and I don't know if anybody would have guessed that he would this quickly become a future contender for the World Heavyweight Championship or the WWE Championship, but I can see it happening. The crowd is starting to fall in love with Dom. I think the natural progression of Dominic Mysterio's ascension is to beat John Cena in one of his final matches. In fact, if John goes over on December 13th in his final match, he might have the last victory over John Cena. I would love to see that. I think that does two things, right? It puts over two people. Whoever he wrestles in his last match, no matter what, gets bragging rights that they wrestled John Cena for the last time. But if Dom gets that last victory over John, I think that in itself is bragging rights. So, they set up the Intercontinental Championship match, and then we've seen John Cena in 6-man tag team action against the Judgment Day, teaming alongside Sheamus and Rey Mysterio. In my eyes, a lot of these spots were definitely stuff that these dudes would pull off at a house show. You got the 3-man 5-knuckle shuffle, and it was a very basic match, but the back end was sick. All the falsies that they had, it was really incredible stuff, to be honest. And, they really stacked it up on John for that big falsie at the end where Dom and Finn Balor and JD came off the top rope with shit on him. Sheamus and Rey had to rush in to break up the pinfall. And, of course, the finish of the match was 619 into the bro kick, into the attitude adjustment. And it was fun. And I don't know if it was as emotional as the victory in Boston, but it was pretty freaking emotional. And I can't imagine how crazy sad it's going to be on Saturday night, December 13th, for that last match of John Cena. That being said, when I think of my favorite moments and memories watching the WWE or the WWF from Madison Square Garden, my first memory really is watching SummerSlam 1991. That was the first event that I ever saw on MSG, and the main event of that show wasn't a wrestling match. It was Macho Man versus Macho Man and Elizabeth getting married, which was incredibly emotional. If you lived in that time frame, if you're a wrestling fan now, you can't imagine a wrestling wedding going right in the middle of the ring. But this is the one time in history that it happened, and it was fucking beautiful, and people cried, and it's iconic, right? But when we talk about the memorable match from that card, and it might be my favorite match ever in MSG. As we talk, I'll probably come up with another match. I go, you know what? That might be my favorite match, actually. Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect. Intercontinental Championship. They'd been building it up for a few weeks. Kurt was on his way out because he was hurt. He didn't know if he'd ever be able to wrestle again, and so he wanted to do the favors and put Bret over on the way out. And man, if you are a wrestling fan and you've never seen this match, I think you should stop calling yourself a wrestling fan. Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect is it's a masterclass of how to work a professional wrestling match. Just selling and timing and technical wrestling and, Kurt bumping his ass off in that thing and just, incredible stuff. And SummerSlam 91 in general, I've always been fond of that event. All those 1991 events, that's really where my wrestling memory begins. I watched some stuff in 1990, but 91 is so fresh, so clear in my mind. It's like it was yesterday. When we talk about Bret Hart in Madison Square Garden, for me personally, Bret might be the MSG MVP as far as like I think of matches that I want to watch from Madison Square Garden. I think of Bret Hart matches. Him and Mr. Perfect, as we just mentioned. Him and Owen Hart, still to this day, if you ask many people, the best opening match in pay-per-view history, they will say WrestleMania 10, Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. And it's hard to argue with that. That is the match that established Owen Hart as one of the upper heels. It's unfortunate that in 1994, Owen Hart did not become the WWF champion even for a cup of coffee. But what a classic Bret and Owen was at WrestleMania in 1994. And then, of course, I also think of, and if you haven't seen it, look at YouTube. They just uploaded on the WWE Vault channel, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart from Survivor Series 96. Much like the Owen match really started the ascent of Owen Hart in the eyes of WWF fans, I think that this match with Bret Hart and Stone Cold really kicked off Stone Cold's run nearing the top of the card, right? It was a technical classic. This is before Austin had to change his style because of the neck injury that he would suffer, coincidentally, to Owen at SummerSlam 97. And, it's incredible stuff. I think out of all three of those Bret matches, my favorite to go to is always going to be Bret and Mr. Perfect. Again, there's a fondness there. I didn't watch it live when it happened, but when you talk about SummerSlam, it all begins at Madison Square Garden, 1988. Of course, the main event of that show was the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks, Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant. Do I even have to explain who the Mega Powers are? Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man Randy Savage, of course, with special guest referee Jesse the Body Ventura. And, of course, that infamous finish, which doesn't seem so risque now, but, Elizabeth takes off her skirt to unveil the little bikini bottoms that she has on, and Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant don't know what to do themselves. It's like the first time they've seen a woman in a bikini. But I would say that the card itself isn't that classic as far as match quality. Like when you run down what was on the show, it's like a lot of short matches and a lot of matches that are very forgettable. I would say that probably the standout matches from the show that aren't the main event, which again, this first one isn't a match classic. Ultimate Warrior versus Honky Tonk Man, where he wins the Intercontinental Championship in 31 seconds. And I think the other match probably worth watching on there is Demolition versus the Hart Foundation. Another Bret Hart match, go figure. But, you got stuff on there that just seems very throwaway. You know what? The Bulldogs and the Rougeaus actually opened the show. I forgot about that. So that's not too shabby. But you got like Bad News Brown and Ken Patera and Rick Rude and Junkyard Dog and the Powers of Pain versus the Bolsheviks. It's like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, it just seems like such a forgettable card outside of the main event and, those two tag matches, right? SummerSlam in 88, you had SummerSlam in 98 at Madison Square Garden. That's a card that I always looked at fondly. Didn't watch it live, but I got it as soon as it came out in home video, and I played the shit out of that tape. Val Venus is a piece of garbage now when you see him online as far as what his political beliefs are and conspiracy theories, but you wouldn't believe it unless you saw it. D'Lo Brown versus Val Venus opening SummerSlam 98. Banger of a match. Unfortunately, the finish sucked balls, but outside of that, very good way to start the show. The memorable matches on the SummerSlam 98 card, without looking, you of course got Undertaker and Stone Cold. Not a bad match. Nothing to write home about, I would say, but they had quite the build, especially with the Highway to Hell theme going into it. I think the match to watch on that show is The Rock versus Triple H in a ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. I think that was a good way to establish Triple H as like the, a crowned Intercontinental Champion, and in a situation where I think he would have really I think he would have ascended to a new height at that point in 1998 had it not been for him being injured right after the fact and out for a little bit. Nonetheless, very iconic match there. There's like a tag team match involving Mankind and Kane versus the New Age Outlaws that I always found very entertaining. And yeah, that's a great card. And, other than SummerSlam, they obviously had other events there. You had WrestleMania 1, 10, and 20. We mentioned the Bret and Owen match. But, of course, you also have WrestleMania 1. To me, it's a little bit of a hard watch, if I'm being honest. That's before my time. But it sets the table for wrestling in general, right? It changes the business. The iconic celebrity appearances, of course, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T in the main event, and it's good stuff. WrestleMania 10, outside of Bret and Owen, you have Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, the iconic ladder match. I actually, in some ways, prefer the sequel at SummerSlam 95, not at Madison Square Garden, but the fact that they could use the ladder as a weapon, technically, behind the scenes, and they had to work around the ladder, I found very appealing to that match. Especially, I think, more so when I knew the backstory, right? But, you can't dispute that Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon really changed the standard in that ladder match of, like, how important and pivotal ladder matches would become in professional wrestling. WrestleMania 20 is a overloaded show. I don't think it holds up that well, but there are some great things on that card that I loved watching from Madison Square Garden. I think Christian and Chris Jericho from that event is very, very underrated. It's unfortunate that the story between Christian and Jericho kind of fizzled out after Trish turned heel and aligned with Christian. Eddie and Kurt Angle. One of the best WWE Championship matches of all time at a WrestleMania. The finish with Eddie sliding out of the boot while Kurt has the ankle lock on, and then small packaging Kurt. Classic Eddie Guerrero. And it's crazy that, this past week it was 20 years since Eddie Guerrero passed away, and we definitely lost him way too soon. And it's crazy, just to kind of sidebar here for a second. It's crazy the impact that Eddie had in WWE in the short amount of time that he was there. When you really think about it, we look at him now as like this mythical figure, especially if you're someone who, it's weird to even think about, but if you were born after Eddie Guerrero and you never saw him live on TV, he's like a mythical being. He was only in the WWF from 2000 to 2005, and there's like a 10-month layoff where he's not there? He leaves in May of 2001, and he ends up coming back to the company in April. Is that my math there? 9 months? And he did a lot of cool things on the indies. So obviously, Eddie's body of work stretches beyond WWE. He obviously established himself doing independence and working Mexico and El Paso, and then of course he did some stuff for AAA. He was a part of the very first iconic When Worlds Collide pay-per-view. His WCW stint was one of the better ones of that time period. He had a run in ECW before that, a classic with Dean Malenko before he left the company, and of course, so many great matches with Chris Jericho and particularly Rey Mysterio, both in WCW and the WWE. Just thinking about what could have been if Eddie would have stuck around, right? But the subject isn't Eddie, it's Madison Square Garden. And on that card, too, hard to talk about now, and some people can't separate the art and the artist. I get it. But one of my memorable moments as a fan is watching that main event between Shawn Michaels and Triple H and Chris Benoit for the World Championship, and I really wanted Benoit to win. I was a big Benoit guy, and for any aspiring wrestlers out there, if you've struggled putting together multi-man matches, if you struggle to put together a three-way match, if you're one of those people that go, man, I don't know how to do a triple threat match, or I fucking hate doing triple threat matches, just steal the structure from that WrestleMania 20 match and make it your own. Everything is flowing at all times. It's never one of those triple threat matches where a guy's just laying on the outside for too long while the other two guys run spots. Two guys will run something for a second. Another guy will pop in. The spot will end with taking one of those guys out, and the next two guys will run a spot. It never stops until the moment in the match where Shawn Michaels and Triple H double team Benoit and put him through the table. It gives Benoit time to rest. It gives Shawn and Triple H the opportunity to make it seem like it's just down to them. Triple H gets taken out. We get some Benoit and Shawn Michaels. There's a moment where Shawn Michaels goes for the super kick onto Benoit. Benoit ducks, dumps him over the top rope. Boom, Shawn's out of play. And Shawn is bleeding like a motherfucker in this match, by the way. Like, goddamn. We talk about what a great wrestler Shawn Michaels is. He was one of the greatest bleeders of all time when it came time to bleed. Let me fucking tell you. Between WrestleMania 20 and his blade job at Survivor Series 2003, good shit. God, I miss Shawn Michaels so much. But of course, when Triple H comes back into play and tries to get on Benoit, Benoit locks him in the crossface. Triple H is trying so hard not to tap. He rolls back, and I remember in that moment it seemed like an eternity. And I thought for sure Triple H wasn't going to tap, and he was going to pass out, and that was going to be his argument to lose the belt. But when he tapped to Chris Benoit, it was a fucking cool moment, man. And seeing Eddie and Benoit in that match afterwards, it was a fucking cool moment. And hard to watch for a lot of people now, you know, considering what happened with Benoit. And man, it's unfortunate that moment is tainted. You know, John Cena has this iconic Raw moment this past Monday, his final Raw appearance. But the first time that Raw was ever at Madison Square Garden was in September of 1997. And the moment from that show that we all look back on is, of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin stunning Vince McMahon for the first time. And Steve has like the iconic line of, you know, because Vince is very concerned about Austin's health and well-being post pile driver from Owen. He knows he has a neck problem. And, of course, Austin says something to the effect of, well, Vince, I appreciate the fact that you're concerned about Stone Cold. And then he stops for a second. And Austin, just the way he delivers things, puts the fingers close to his temples. And he goes, and I also appreciate the fact that, hell, you could kiss my ass. And then he, you know, delivers the kick and the snare. Boom, Stone Cold Stunner. And Vince does that stupid-ass twitch that he does. And, I mean, it's unintentionally hilarious, or maybe intentionally hilarious. I don't know, but that's a great moment. And the match from that show that everybody talks about was Cactus Jack coming into Madison Square Garden to wrestle Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and them having like a little hardcore brawl. And very memorable stuff. You get to see Dude Love and Mankind and Cactus Jack on the big screen at the same time. But, you know, they had that iconic match at Madison Square Garden. But, you know, maybe more than Mr. Perfect and Brett, I knew there was going to be something I was going to stumble upon that I was like, you know, I think I like that match more. Triple H and Cactus Jack, Madison Square Garden, the street fight, Royal Rumble 2000. You don't get much better than that, and people have said it before. I'll reiterate it. Mick Foley made Triple H in those matches in 2000. You know, you had the Royal Rumble, then you had No Way Out the next month. I think that was in Hartford, Connecticut. Man, that Rumble match, it's one of those ones you could just watch over and over again. It never gets old. The brutality is put in the right places at the right time. It's one of the rare matches in WWE where we get thumbtacks. I'm pretty sure unless you could tell me something otherwise off the top of my head, I don't know of any other performer in WWE that used thumbtacks and the match didn't involve Mick. If there's something I'm missing, let me know. Well, okay, hold on. Technically, ECW, Ric Flair, and Big Show, but that was under the WWE umbrella, so you might consider that, right? Is there anything else that I'm missing? I think it all involved Mick. Well, let me know in the comments wherever you're listening to this podcast, or maybe the comments on YouTube if I'm getting that wrong. But yeah, boy, it's hard to pick a favorite between Cactus and Triple H and Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart. Two very different matches, two different styles of matches, but two matches that, repeat viewing. It never, ever gets old. Remember when Triple H made that dramatic return after weeks of build-up, the Beautiful Day package, that ovation from the crowd, the one-time heel coming back as a big-time babyface in that jean vest and leather jacket, was on all the supplements at the time. I think he was talking with Mike at TNT-health.com at the time. But do you remember anything from that card other than that? I suppose you don't remember the Trish Stratus versus Terry no contest that was the match that they had that was actually a wet t-shirt competition. Taz and Spike Dudley defeated the Dudley Boyz in a hardcore match to win the World Tag Team Championships in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Yes, that was a thing that happened. Jericho defeated Rikishi in 3 minutes 27 seconds. There was an 8 minute and 22 second tag match where The Rock and Steve Austin defeated Booker T and the Big Boss Man. Yes. Do you remember the Booker T and Big Boss Man alliance? It was a way to sort of bring Boss Man back into the fold. He was wearing like suits at the time. Didn't last long on TV, I'll tell you that. But Edge and Lance Storm battled in a hell of an Intercontinental Championship match in 1 minute and 10 seconds. Billy and Chuck defeated Sky Duarte and Albert, 3 minutes and 45 seconds. And somehow at the exact same time, 3 minutes and 45 seconds, Rob Van Dam defeated Test. So outside of the, return of Triple H itself, not much to write home about. Did you know that they also had that SmackDown that week from Madison Square Garden? They had a little bit of a better match on top. Kurt Angle versus Steve Austin, 12 minutes and 12 seconds. I'd have to go back and watch that because I don't really remember anything about that match as much as I loved me some Kurt Angle and Steve Austin matches. I think very underrated, if I'm being quite honest. How about in 2003, something that kind of gets glossed over from 2003 SmackDown, a pretty fun 6-man tag main event where Team Angle and The Big Show defeated, are you ready for this? Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, and Mr. America, 17 minutes, 21 seconds. That's right at the tail end of the Mr. America thing. That might have actually been the final appearance of Mr. America. I don't know that for sure, but it seems about right in that time area where Hogan got upset about the payoff from WrestleMania 19 and he was out of there. I'm jumping all over the place. When I think about Elimination Chamber, I think about the first Elimination Chamber at the Survivor Series in 2002, which I think is a pretty underrated card, if I'm being honest. And there was so many good cards in the WWE in 2002. And, probably the only one that can match the Survivor Series, and it's a different card, but it would be SummerSlam that year. But, yeah, man, MSG, the first Elimination Chamber match, of course, that's when Shawn Michaels made his big comeback, won the World Heavyweight title. I think about the moment that Kofi had with Randy Orton, jumping off of one of the ledges, onto Randy Orton. I want to say that was 2008, 2009, the first time they were really trying to push Kofi Kingston. The Rock came back for his first match in years at the 2011 Survivor Series, teamed up with John Cena versus R-Truth and The Miz. And Rock was looking pretty good. A little bit of a teaser for what we were about to get with Cena and The Rock going forward. And, after like 2009, in the 2011 Survivor Series, things get sporadic because, MSG got a little bit more expensive. WWE didn't like to run there as much. We did get, a bunch of shows there in 2019, but that's only because, you filmed Raw and SmackDown and 205 Live and everything. So it's like the memories as far as MSG in recent years is they don't stick with me as much. The ending of tonight's SmackDown was great. Or I'm sorry, SmackDown Raw was great. Ending with, the two War Games teams battling it out, getting the NYPD involved, which I think adds an element of realism to it. But, MSG will always hold a special place in WWE history. So many iconic things went down, especially in the early years where they ran there on a regular basis, right? That's where Hulkamania begins in Madison Square Garden. That's where the month prior to that, the Iron Sheik defeated Bob Backlund in a very controversial decision, right? When his manager, Arnie Scullin, threw in the towel. Diesel becomes the WWF champion when he defeats Bob Backlund during Bob Backlund's heel run in '94 with a kick to the gut and a jackknife and beating him in something like 10 seconds or something ridiculous. The curtain call happens in Madison Square Garden, right? And that really changes the face of the industry. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash are on their way out. They're going to WCW, and Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Shawn Michaels, Diesel, and Razor decide to break character and embrace in the ring. And people didn't like it at the time, but it really changed things. And, that happens in 96, and by 97, they're showing that on TV. They have the fan cam footage. It's, I don't know, MSG has always been fun, and I do wish that they would have closed the show with John Cena this past Monday, but it is what it is. And told you I was going to keep it short and sweet this week. I got to record another episode for you guys this week at some point. Patreon.com/Iron Wrestling for bonus episodes. But bear with me as, again, my schedule is slammed for a little bit here. So I'm trying to fit it in for you guys. That's what she said. And is that what she said? I'm not sure. But even though I'm not giving you as much audio content as I would like to, I'm still trying to give you my absolute best. And appreciate you guys very much. As always, you can follow us on social media at Iron on Wrestling. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. Follow us on all the social media platforms. Follow me. You can find me at Gregory Iron on Twitter, Gregory_Iron on Instagram, Facebook.com/TheHandicappedHero. You can find other stuff with me on handicappedhero.com. That's where you can book me for pro wrestling seminars and motivational speaking engagements. And of course, you can find my Cameo linked to my website. You can get a shout out from me of some sort. ProWrestlingTees.com/Gregory Iron for all of your out of print Gregory Iron shirts, Aaron shirts, Iron on Wrestling shirts, and that's it. Until next week, thanks for stopping by for a little bit, and without further ado, here's what you've been waiting for. A kiss goodbye.